Okay, I have decided to show you how I dye yarn with dye that splits in color. Now what that means is the dye that I use is usually a color that is made up of different colors, and what we're going to be using today is the Wilton's icing color. It's a little blurry, but you can kind of make it out, and it's purple. So this with the icing color, because it's more of a paste than it is liquid, and it because it's purple, it's made up of blues and reds and pinks. So it does split. I've tried this once before, and what I got was a really nice purple and a really nice blue out of it, but I'm hoping at this point that it will show some reds and pinks as well. And I've decided to start pretty much from the very start for people that really don't know how to dye yarn. It's going to be also a tutorial on how to dye yarn on a stovetop. So what I have here, the water's a little pink from, well actually it's not the water, it's the pot, from all the dyeing that I've been doing lately. So that's not going to affect the outcome of the color of the yarn. So I have about, well, I started with about 8 cups. I did put this on kind of just to speed up the video, so it would simmer, and I've turned the element off. So it's just water in here right now. And then for our acid component, we're going to be using white vinegar, because acid helps adhere the dye to the yarn. And I'm going to put about half a cup in. I like to put a decent amount of vinegar into my dye bath, just to ensure that there's not a lot of runoff of the dye once it's done. So now I'm going to turn this on about medium, because we don't want it to boil. You don't want to cook the yarn. If it boils, your wool can felt, and then you just end up with a big clumpy mess. So we don't want it to boil, because the boil will agitate the yarn into a felt. Now when you're dyeing yarn with food coloring, you do have to use a like a natural fiber like wool or alpaca or angora, something that pretty much comes off of an animal. Now, depending on the yarn and depending on how much food coloring you use, and really just little tiny changes in the climate, even that sounds silly, but you can dye cotton with food coloring, but it's not going to be much of a color, and sometimes it just doesn't take. So if you want to dye cotton, I would suggest using like a fabric dye, like tie-dye, and I'll do a video of dyeing cotton at a later date, but right now we're dyeing wool. So this is 100% fisherman's wool, which is what I've been using a lot lately, but I'm going to be getting into dyeing different weights of yarn. This is just a worsted weight. Different weights, different types of wools, different types of animal fibers. But anyways, so now I'm going to open the food coloring. And then I'm going to, maybe you can look at Sadie for a second, because I forgot to get a fork out before I did this. I'm going to use a fork. Now normally what I would do is I would use a spoon, but the spoon's not really going to fit in this. So, and this does not take a lot of dye. This is actually a very concentrated dye, food coloring, so as you can see, as soon as I put it in there, you can see the color already changing. And probably to you it looks black, but it is a nice purple. So, and now I'm going to go and get a spoon. Here, look, you can look at Sadie again. Sadie, are you cute? Yeah, alright. Just such a responsive dog you are. Okay, so this is, I don't know if you can, here, let me change hands, because I'm not left-handed. I don't know if you can see that for the steam that's kind of in the way, but it is a nice purpley, but I do think that I'm just going to add a tiny bit more of the food coloring to it. Here, I'll set the camera down for a second. I don't want that much. Well, I got a nice big amount. So it's going to be very purpley, I think. But what I'm trying to do here, which is why I'm using this specific food coloring, is I'm really hoping that there is going to be color separation and color breaking, and you'll be able to see that in the finished product. Okay, well, on camera that looks like a blue, but it is a really, when I'm looking at it, it's a really deep royal purple. So, but on camera, seeing the blue, that just proves the theory about how this yarn, or rather how this dye splits in color. I see purple, you see blue. And then once it's dyed, we will see both purple and blue. Okay, so I'm just going to let that sit. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. I'll let it sit, and now we're going to come over here, and you want a pretty big bowl. Now this is, I don't even know how big it is. I don't know, I'd say about 8 inches across. But we're going to fill it up with warm water. Warm water, bring it over here, and now what we're going to do, now as you see, this is just water. I haven't put anything else into it. You're going to take your skein of yarn and you're going to put it in the water. Now my hands have a little bit of dye on it. You might want to use rubber or vinyl gloves while dyeing your yarn, just to protect your hands. I really don't care about whether or not I have dye on my hands. You know, my daily life and my job doesn't really require me looking the best. I mean, how good can you be when you're covered in soap suds while bathing dogs? So the reason why we want to soak the yarn is because if you just take a dry skein of yarn and put it into your dye bath, it's going to float on top, which is great for other experiments, but not for what we're trying to do today. So the yarn is pretty well soaked and saturated. Usually you have to let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes, but I've been you know, pushing it down and squeezing it and stuff, so yeah. So I'm just going to set the camera down. There's a nice shot of the dye that we're using. So what I'm doing now I know you really can't see it. I'm just taking the skein of yarn out. Also, before I do what I was about to do, I'm going to show you this here. What I've done was I have just loosely tied one of the ends around the skein here into like a little pull loop, so when we're done I can just like pull this and it'll be fine. Now the reason why it's loose is because if it's tight you're going to end up with a white mark. And the reason why you want to do this is so your yarn doesn't tangle. So what I'm doing here, and I'm going to try doing this, maybe you'll be able to see what I'm doing with the yarn. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to squeeze out the excess water. You don't really have to do this. I mean, it's not going to hurt your dye bath any if you don't. I just like to. And then we are going to just drop it in the dye bath. Just like that. Okay. And then I kind of use the spoon to push it down more into the dye. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but over here it's more of a dark purple, whereas here is more of a blue. So already I'm seeing color separation. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let that sit there. Probably for about 10 minutes. I'll come back, see if the dye bath is clear, because you want to absorb as much, you want the yarn to absorb as much of the dye as possible. Now, with working with the Wilton's icing color, I've noticed that the yarn doesn't soak up all of the dye, so your dye bath isn't going to be 100% clear when the yarn is done dyeing. But so I'll let that sit for about 10 minutes. I'll come back, see what it looks like. If I think that it can dye for a little bit longer, I'll probably leave it on for another 10 minutes. So it all depends. So we will be back and we'll see what I've decided to do. Okay, so we're back, and the dye bath, here, let me bring this over here. The dye bath is actually pretty clear. So yeah, I was gone for, well, not gone, but like, I let this sit in the dye bath for about 20 minutes or so, because I went downstairs to borrow my neighbor's camera tripod, so it's not as shaky and I can do things two-handed. Woo! And we got to talking. So yeah, so she was gone for about 20 minutes. Let's pull this out a little bit. Okay, so as you can, oh, maybe as you can't see, I'm not sure here. Okay, there is a lot of, here, this is difficult to see, I don't even know if you can see that. You can see here, there's more purple, and as you get more into the center of the skein, it's more blue. So we did accomplish the dye splitting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool, and then yeah, I'm going to let this cool, and then I'm going to wash the yarn. Now, once you let it cool, it has to be cool enough at least that you can reach into it and grab the yarn out. And then you want to Now what I do is I use the same bowl that I used to soak the yarn before I put it into the dye bath. So I'll put the yarn in there and put hot tap water in, depending on how hot or warm the dye bath still is. So I pretty much put the same temperature of tap water onto here, onto the yarn once it's in the bowl, because you don't want to shock the yarn when you pull it out and you're washing it. So you know, so if you go from a warm dye bath to cold tap water, you could shock the yarn, and it breaks up the fibers and could either felt it together even more, or just is not good for working with. Once you knit or crochet with it, it could just break the strands. And I've had that happen before, and it sucks. You have gorgeous yarn, but the yarn's being shocked, and it just breaks apart on you when you're working with it. So yes, so we're gonna let this cool. We're gonna come back and wash it, and then we'll hang it to dry, and we'll see the end result. Okay. Okay, so we're back. The yarn has cooled down. So you can see I'm sticking my hand in this, no problem. I'd say the water is about lukewarm right now. So what we want to do is we want to gently wash the yarn so until the water runs clear. Now, as you might be able to see, the water looks pretty clear already, but we haven't washed it yet. So as we put the soap in, there could be some dye run still happening. But so pretty much what you do is you just put that on. It's a little cold. Okay. Now, while washing the yarn, you don't want your water to be hot, because again, you'll have that felting issue, because you are going to be agitating the yarn a tiny bit. Not a whole lot, but a tiny bit. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use some mild dish detergent, just like a drop or two. I put a little bit much in my hand. And just kind of work it in the water here. You don't want to put it directly onto your yarn. And just pull it out. Wash it a little bit. Squeeze it out. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but the water is a little cloudy. So you just want to keep doing this until it's not cloudy anymore. Whoop. Now, the reason why you want to do this is because you want to create a color-safe yarn, so when you work with it, it's not going to discolor your fingers, and when you wash the finished product, it's not going to discolor anything else you're washing with it. Now, what you can do once you think you've gotten most of the soap out is that you can kind of just, you know, leave it in here like this and let it let the container fill up and let the water pour out, and you know, it'll just keep cycling the water through until it becomes clear. But I think that's a great waste of water, and it's just easier for me just to keep doing this. Okay, and our water is clear. Just gonna rinse it a little bit more just to make sure I've gotten all the soap out. No. Okay. Now, this is what I was talking about, why you want to have the end tied loosely. Obviously I didn't tie it loose enough, but that's okay in this instance because we were trying to get a multicolored look. But as you can see, where the tie was around the yarn is a much lighter blue and purple. So I didn't tie it as loose as I had thought I did. So you want to be extra careful with that. Okay. What's going on? Now, like I said, the tangle or the tying of the yarn, the ends like this, will keep your skein as detangled, well, more detangled as it would be if you had just dumped the skein into the dye bath. But I do find that it does tangle still a tiny bit, but it's nothing unmanageable. So it's quite easy to detangle. Oh, what's going on there? There we go. You can see it happened on this end too. But that's okay, because we wanted a multicolor. So there's, I don't know if you can see that, but there's lots of, it goes from a deep purple to the very light blue throughout. And you know, the colors will lighten up once it's dry, just because you know, wet things are generally darker than they are when they're dry. So it has really nothing to do with, like, you know, the dye going away once it dries. It just, dark things or wet things are darker. So I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to go and hang this up to dry, and then I will reskein it, and we'll come back and we'll see the end result. Okay, so here is the end result of our yarn dyeing experiment with Wilton's icing color. It looks a lot more blue than it actually is in person. Like right here, it's actually a nice, like, royal purple, and then you get into the lighter blues and stuff. But this is the result of it. I will also be selling the skein, which, like all my YouTube videos, there is a link to the listing in the description. So this is it. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and hope that you check out the listing for it, and we will see you next time.